All right, if you would, turn with me to Acts 27. We only got like one more week in Acts, unless I can draw it out. Who cheered? Woo, sick of this. Thought I was done with Exodus, and we hit Acts. Well, next we're going to be doing Leviticus and Numbers in a row. You'll be begging for Acts. I'm just kidding, we're not. People are like, we're not going to come for a while. Acts 27. All right. And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, just a little recap, Paul's been arrested. He's appeared before several kings and important figures. He's appealed to Caesar, and now he is on his way to Rome. And when it was decided that we should sail to Italy, they delivered Paul and some other prisoners to one named Julius, a centurion of the Augustan regiment. So entering a ship of Adramyttium, which is an ore found in Moria, we put to sea, meaning to sail along the coast of Asia. Aristarchus, a Macedonian of Thessalonica, was with us. And the next day we landed at Sidon, and Julius treated Paul kindly and gave him liberty to go to his friends and receive care. When we had put to sea from there, we sailed under the shelter of Cyprus because the winds were contrary. And when we had sailed over the sea, which is off Cilicia and Pamphylia, we came to Myra, a city of Lycia. There the centurion found an Alexandrian ship sailing to Italy, and he put us on board. And when we had sailed slowly many days and arrived with difficulty off Cnidus, the wind not permitting us to proceed, we sailed under the shelter of Crete off Salmone. Passing it with difficulty, we came to a place called Fair Havens near the city of Lasea. Now, when much time had been spent and sailing was now dangerous because the fast was already over, Paul advised them, saying, "Men, I perceive that this voyage will end with disaster and much loss, not only of the cargo and ship, but also our lives." Nevertheless, the centurion was more persuaded by the helmsman and the owner of the ship than by the things spoken by Paul. And because the harbor was not suitable to winter in, the majority advised to set sail from there also, if by any means they could reach Phoenix, a harbor of Crete opening toward the southwest and northwest, and winter there. When the south wind blew softly, supposing that they had obtained their purpose, putting out to sea, they sailed close by Crete. But not long after, a tempestuous head wind arose, called Euroclydon. So when the ship was caught and could not head into the wind, we let her drive. And running under the shelter of an island called Clauda, we secured the skiff with difficulty. When they had taken on board, they used cables to undergird the ship, and fearing lest they should run aground on the Syrtis sands, they struck sail and so were driven. And because we were exceedingly tempest-tossed, the next day they lightened the ship. On the third day, we threw the ship's tackle overboard with our own hands. Now when neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and no small tempest beat on us, all hope that we would be saved was finally given up. But after long absence from food, then Paul stood in the midst of them and said, "Men, you should have listened to me and not have sailed from Crete and incurred this disaster and loss. And now I urge you to take heart, for there will be no loss of life among you, but only of the ship. For there stood by me this night an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve, saying, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must be brought before Caesar, and indeed God has granted you all those who sail with you. Therefore take heart, men, for I believe God that it will be just as it was told me. However, we must run aground on a certain island.' But when the 14th night had come, as we were driven up and down in the Adriatic Sea, about midnight the sailors sensed that they were drawing near some land. And they took soundings and found it to be 20 fathoms. And when they had gone a little farther, they took soundings again and found it to be 15 fathoms. Then, fearing lest we should run aground on the rocks, they dropped 4 anchors from the stern and prayed for day to come. And as the sailors were seeking to escape from the ship, when they had let down the skiff into the sea under pretense of putting out anchors from the prow, Paul said to the centurion and his soldiers, 'Unless these men stay in the ship, you cannot be saved.' Then the soldiers cut away the ropes of the skiff and let it fall off. And as day was about to dawn, Paul implored them all to take food, saying, 'Today is the 14th day. You have waited and continued without food and eaten nothing. Therefore I urge you to take nourishment, for this is for your survival, since not a hair will fall from the head of any of you.' And when he had said these things, he took bread and gave thanks to God in the presence of them all. And when he had broken it, he began to eat. Then they were all encouraged and also took food themselves. And in all, we were 276 persons on the ship. So when they had eaten enough, they lightened the ship and threw out the wheat into the sea. Now when it was day, they did not recognize the land, but they observed a bay with a beach onto which they planned to run the ship if possible. And they let go the anchors and left them in the sea, meanwhile loosing the rudder ropes, and they hoisted the mainsail to the wind and made for shore. But striking a place where two seas meet, they ran the ship aground, and the prow stuck fast and remained immovable, but the stern was being broken up by the violence of the waves. Now the soldiers' plan was to kill the prisoners, lest any of them should swim away and escape. But the centurion, wanting to save Paul, kept them from their purpose and commanded that those who could swim should jump overboard first and get to land, and the rest, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship. And so it was that they all escaped safely to land. All right. I'm going to get some water. There's a lot of reading. All right. So Paul has been in prison for 2 years, or being held for 2 years. And now he's finally on his way to Rome. And I think we have a map of the journey. This is the journey which he takes. Where we are, where he gets to, if you can see the island of Crete, it's right there where this is the path he's taken so far. Okay, he's loaded onto a grain cargo ship, and you can just leave that up. He's loaded onto a grain cargo ship from Egypt, along with several other prisoners, including Aristarchus and Luke, and they begin the journey. Remember, there's not like passenger ships. They all just like hop on to a ship that's already going somewhere. So this is a grain cargo ship from Egypt. And the first stop, we're told, is Sidon, where we see Julius, the commander. He allows Paul, a prisoner, to visit with some friends and receive care, which I think is an interesting note. Because Paul, I mean, if you've been following along with us, he's a tough guy. He's a man of faith. He's a man of God. He'll stand by himself. He will shout down a room of people. If there's a riot, he will go into the middle of it unless people like hold him back to try to shut it down. He just like has the utmost faith in God. But I think that we see everybody like this in the Bible. We see the disciples like this. And it makes it easy for us to overlook that what might have been going on in their heads, what might have been going on in their hearts, right? He needed some friends. Even Paul needed some friends to pour into him. And because you can't, he's pouring out. He is pouring out continuously. And you can't pour out unless there's something in you, unless there are things being poured in. And it's true. He spends time with God. He knows the word, but he needs the fellowship of other Christians. And he has some. Even Luke is with him, and one is great, but we need the fellowship of other believers. You need the fellowship of other believers. It says not to forsake the gathering together of the saints, because God knows that we need to be with other believers. I know many, especially in this time, that have past experiences with Christians or with churches, myself included, and it kind of pushes you into hiding. We get pushed into hiding. And even if we do attend church, we're like, I'm not going to get involved like I did before. I'm not going to make friends like I did before. I'm not going to make this my home like it was before, because we're hurt. And they call it church hurt, but like there's hurt everywhere. Yeah, you have hurt from anywhere and everything. And it's funny because like you can get hurt at work. You can get hurt at school. You can get hurt in relationships, but we continually go back to those, right? You go back to school because you have to, because it's for your good. You go back to your job because you have to, because it's for your good. But we don't, but church is for a greater good. But we keep from it because of hurt. And I'm sensitive to it. I understand. I do. But you have to have the courage to get back into church. You have to have the courage to get into a fellowship of other believers. There are too many isolated Christians. And online church has just made it easy to just like, and it's, I know sometimes we miss church. I know sometimes we got things going on, and it's awesome that you can catch up, but it's made it easy to not go to church and not be a part of a church, or not be a part of the new church that you're at. And listen, like, it's okay if you have to take it slow. I'm okay. I'm okay with being a church where people can heal, even if they just come here and heal and then go somewhere else. It's happened plenty of times, and we're okay with it, right? We're like, still send your check. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We even prayed in the beginning. We're like, Lord, send the black sheep. Send the people who aren't accepted. Send the people who have been given up on or forsaken. Send us the hurt lambs. Because God's desire, it isn't just to like heal you and keep you in a pen by yourself, but to bring you back into the fold. To bring you back into the fold. And even Paul needed fellowship of believers. And if he did, you do. If he did, I do. And when we isolate ourselves, we're just playing into what the devil wants. Because we're supposed to be in fellowship. Sometimes in the beginning announcements, I'm like, hey, let's stop talking so we can start church. Right? And it's always like, hey, let's stop fellowshipping so we can start church. But church has already started. Church has already started. The fellowship is part of the church. And if everyone's in here sitting, the day I come in here ready for announcements, everyone's sitting here quiet, we're in trouble. It's like, no, nobody likes each other anymore. Did we have a field day the other day? Everyone was playing sports. It's part of church, and it's an essential part of church. It's an essential part of your Christian walk. And even Paul needs this. And so God gives him some fellowship with other believers before he heads off again to Rome. And we see them going to several different locations. The sailing has been a bit difficult. They say the winds have been contrary. The going has been slow, and they've had to adapt. But finally, they land in a place called Fair Havens, which Fair Havens is there, but it also well known as the place where the elves go when they leave Middle Earth. Got to fit it in. But now, as they're here, a decision has to be made. A decision has to be made. We're told in verse 9 that sailing was dangerous because the fast, and if you noticed, and in my Bible at least, the fast is capitalized. So it's not just like, oh, we were doing a fast. The fast was already over. This is in reference to the Day of Atonement, which is on the 10th day of the 7th month in the Jewish calendar. So for us, this is about October 1st. It's October 1st. And this time of year is an unpredictable and dangerous time to sail the Mediterranean. So it's not just Paul who knows that this is a dangerous time. All the sailors know this is a dangerous time. It's well known. That's when Paul says, hey, it's already past the fast. We should not go. And they know, but the harbor at Fair Havens wasn't the best to winter in. They're going to be there for a while, okay? It's not the best to winter in. And the harbor at Phoenix faces west, so it's safer to harbor in. Why? I don't know. I'm not a sailor. But faced west and was safer to harbor in. So they will need to stop at some point and winter somewhere. So they want to winter in Phoenix. So this is a little bit of a race against time, and they're already too late. And Paul, the prisoner, warns them if they do decide to press on, that it will end in disaster. He doesn't just say, hey, I warn you, look, that we maybe shouldn't do this based on wisdom. He says, if we go, it will end in disaster for everyone in the ship. He's prophesying a little bit. I'm telling you what's going to happen if we do this. But the owner of the ship and the helmsman, the pilot, tell the centurion, it's going to be fine. It's going to be good. We're fine. Let's just go. Why do they want to go? Why are they pressing to go? Well, they have expensive grain on board. They want to get that grain where it's going as quickly as possible to get something else to move it along. So the reason that they're like prompting, let's continue to go, is a little bit motivated by money, by profit, okay? And since these guys, if you're like, hey, should we go? Let's ask people. Let's ask the owner of the boat and the pilot. And on this side, we have a prisoner who probably doesn't want to go to Rome as quickly as possible because he's going to be on trial. Who are you going to listen to? The people that you think have the expertise, right? So the centurion decides to believe them and push on. And then, just as if like to confirm that this is a great plan, it says the south wind blew softly. What does that mean? I don't know, but it sounds good, right? Oh, the south wind blew softly. It sounds like a poem. And so they're like, so it looks good. They're like, oh, that soft wind is blowing so softly. It looks good. Let's go, right? And this is the way of it. This is the way it works. Many times there's a voice whispering in your head, danger, don't do this. Don't make this decision. But the world is saying something else. It's like, it won't be so bad. It's going to be great. Look at that south wind. look at that south wind blowing, right? And that their voices can be louder. And man, it looks good. It looks good. It looks safe. It looks like there will be no repercussions, no consequences. We might just be able to do this, even though there's something or someone inside saying, I don't think you should do this. This is a bad idea, right? It will be fine. And so we step off the path. The devil doesn't tempt us with like a witch holding candy, right? Where you're like, this person looks untrustworthy. I don't know. It's like, come here, come. It'll be fine, right? You're like, you're not, it's never like that. It's never like that. It always looks good. It always looks good. And the sailors have been warned by Paul. He warns them. So not long after they sail into those soft southerly winds, a hard wind arises, and the name given it has the meaning of a typhoon or hurricane, which we are more familiar with, blowing in all directions. Okay, so we can be sure that there's a weatherman somewhere on Crete saying, everyone is going to die. Your dogs are going to die. Your horses are going to die. Get out now, right? And the Floridians are like, I'm not even going to board up. Ain't nothing going to happen. I don't believe it. We're fine. I'm not leaving the island. Evacuation. These guys, they're crazy. But this time it's real. Okay, so the wind is taking them where it will, and it drives them away from the island of Crete, south of Claudia, where things just get worse and worse and worse. Usually, back then, they would keep the skiff or like the lifeboat. They would pull it behind the ship. But now they decide to bring it on board because the waves are getting higher, and so they don't want to lose it. This task is very difficult for them to pull this lifeboat in the midst of the waves. But they're able to get it up, and they tie it up in the boat, and they tie ropes under the hull to save it from the strain that might come from working the mast in the storm. Because have you ever worked a mast in a storm when there's not ropes running under the hull? Ugh. It's rough. I'll tell you that. So, but I'm sure they know what they're doing, right? And so they're doing all these things to make it safer, to try their best. And it says they're afraid of running into the Syrtis sands, which are two gulfs on the north shore of Africa. There's a Syrtis major and a Syrtis minor that has a lot of banks and shoals, so it's a great place to wreck your ship. And they have no idea where they are. They're getting further and further from Crete. They have no idea where they are. They've lost all thought of controlling the ship. They pull down the sails and even take down the beam to which the sail is attached, right? They've given up all idea that they might control where the ship is going, and they just become like a huge rowboat, right? Just being pushed by the winds. They're tossed with the tempest. They've lost all control. And all the wisdom of the helmsman, all the experience of the sailors, the abilities of man, it doesn't matter how long they've done it, how much they know, how well they can read the skies or the wind. At this point, they are absolutely helpless. They can do nothing. They are at the mercy of the storm. And it's here in the storm, when they are helpless, that everything begins to get stripped away. Everything begins to get stripped away. They begin to lighten the load. That grain from Egypt that was so important to get as quickly as possible so they could make as much profit. The reason they are on this journey, the reason the owner of the ship owns the ship is to transport this grain, and it's the first thing to go. It's the very first thing to go. The money. That money that drove them with haste. As important as it seemed to drive the decision-making, be the number one factor in making a decision, it actually ended up being the first thing to go when it was all said and done. In the storm, what seems like the most important thing is worthless. Is worthless. The very first thing to go. The next thing they toss over is the tackle. Probably the cargo gears first, the things they would use to load the grain on the ship and off the ship when they get to port, right? They get rid of all that stuff. But then they eventually toss over the block and tackle systems, which are used to adjust the sails, meaning they may not be able to ever control the ship quite like they need to. I'm sure they kept something for like the mainsail, but like they even throw over every extra thing they can possibly throw over. And then they don't see the sun or stars for many days, and they completely give up. They've given up on making money. They've given up on controlling the ship. They've given up on getting to where they are going. They've given up on everything. So at first they became helpless, and now they are hopeless. They are helpless and hopeless. In the storm, that's when you find out what's really important. That's when you find out what's truly important to you. In the storm, you can come to a place where everything you needed or wanted or thought you needed, you would be glad to be rid of it. You would be glad to let it go if only you could be saved from the storm. The things that are the most important things in our lives all of a sudden just become like extracurricular activities, extra things that we would be glad to get rid of if only we can survive this storm. God will allow storms in our lives when only the storm will strip us of the things that we've been holding on to. The things that are oh so important. The things that guide our decision making, the things we love, the things that we protect, the things that have consumed our thoughts and driven our decisions, the things that we have really placed our hopes in besides God, the things that we have held tighter to than God. He will allow the storm so that we can see what we've been holding on to, what we need, what we don't need, what is actually maybe led us astray. God, we will see those things in the storm. And the storm is where we might finally come to the place where we admit, I have no control. All that control I thought I had, all the decisions I was making, leading the plan for my own life, now I come to a place where I admit I have no control. And then we come to a place where we throw it overboard and said, I have to just trust God. I have to just trust God. And then we wonder why the storms come. Maybe we've overloaded our ship with too much things that are not important. God allows storms in our lives to strip us of the things we've been holding on to, the things that we've loved, where we'll give up control. Sometimes we have to be taken to a place where we are hopeless and helpless. And we have no one to turn to but God. And I can guarantee you one thing. He will always be there. He will always be there. He will never leave you nor forsake you. If all of your friends and family have forsaken you, the church has forsaken you, God will never leave you nor forsake you. He will always be there. And often it's in the storm that we can hear him the loudest. I had a friend once that lost his legs in Vietnam, and we were on a sailing boat, and there was a thunderstorm. Do you guys know him? But listen, God will allow these storms to come into our lives. He will allow these storms to come into our lives, but he won't leave us there. He will not leave us there. When things are at their worst, Paul stands up and he starts off with, which I think I would have started off with too, I told you so. I told you so. They probably knew he was going to say that. When he stood up, he's like, I have something to say. They're like, oh, like, I don't want to point it out. But you should have listened to me. And I don't think he's being prideful. I think he's saying, listen, the same source that told me we shouldn't have gone, right? God told me to tell you we shouldn't have gone. You didn't listen then, but now God has another word. Will you listen now? This is what's happening, okay? You didn't heed the warning that was given. This was avoidable if you'd only listened. Think about that. When we hit those storms, this was avoidable if you had only listened. There were warnings. God had spoken, but we didn't listen. And then Paul brings hope. He says, an angel of God appeared to me and said, do not be afraid. You must be brought before Caesar. And indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. Every life that sails with you. So take heart. However, we will run aground on an island. So God, in the middle of the storm, after they're hopeless and helpless, and they can't even see the stars. It's black. They don't know where they are. God gives them a word of hope, a promise that they will make it through it. Says, you will see the sun again. You will see the other side of this. There might be something else is going to happen. There might be a few more struggles, but you will make it to the other side. And after 2 weeks in the midst of the storm, they sensed that they were drawing near to land, and they began to take soundings. So they would have like a long rope with a rock or something, and they would drop this to the bottom. It had marks on it to see how deep they were, to see if it was getting shallower. So 20 fathoms would be like 40 yards, and 15 fathoms would be like 30 yards. And when I hear them shouting this out, I hear it like there's like a female football broadcaster. You ever heard her? And she's like, 20 yards. And 10 yards. That's what I picture, like a little bit of a pirate voice. So it's getting shallower and shallower, right? And they feel like they're getting closer to shore, but they can't see anything. They're afraid they might crash onto some rocks, so they drop the anchors and they pray for day to come. And then some of the sailors, good sailors that they are, under the pretense, they're like, we're going to go drop some anchors in the back near the lifeboat. No big deal. They try to escape with the lifeboat. I don't know how they thought they were going to get away with this. Like, no one's going to see, like, what are they doing back there? It seems like they're lifting the lifeboat off the ship, right? But Paul tells the centurion and the soldiers that the men need to stay with the ship for everyone to be saved. So, look, they need to stay with the ship for everyone to be saved. And the centurion cuts the lifeboat away. Cuts away the lifeboat, the only escape, the last-ditch effort, the last iron in the fire, the last thing that they could use to take control of their own lives, to save their own lives. The only escape, the centurion cuts it away. And then they eat the last of the food and cast the wheat into the water, the rest of the food. And they see some land and make for it, but they run aground on a reef. And so they say, if you can swim to shore. But before they do that, before they swim, the soldiers decide, hey, we should kill the prisoners. I might have killed them before we handed out the food. But anyway, they're like, let's kill the prisoners. And then you might be like, why did they do this? Do they not like the prisoners? No. See, a Roman soldier whose prisoner escapes, we've seen this already several times in Acts, if their prisoner escapes, they're punished with death. They are killed if the prisoner escapes. Would you trust, hey, these prisoners, we're all about to separate and swim to shore. Do we trust that these prisoners are going to stay with us and stay as prisoners? No. So they're like, it's not like they're filled with hatred for these guys. This is just like, this makes sense, right? And they're like, let's just, I don't trust them. It's not worth my life. Let's just kill him. But the centurion stays their hand for the sake of Paul, and they all make it to shore. Now, I do think that the centurion grew to like Paul, but I also think that he believed in the word of the Lord when Paul said the angel told him, indeed, God has granted you all those who sail with you. If God had said, hey, I will save everyone's life who is sailing with you, would you kill the guy that like the with belonged to? This shows that the centurion not only likes Paul, but he believes the word of the Lord. He believes what Paul is saying. He's giving credence now to what Paul is saying, and so he acts upon it. And he keeps them all alive. And the word of the Lord comes true, and all 276 people on board were saved, except for one young man. He was clinging to a door, and there was enough room on the door, but the young lady would not allow him on the... Just kidding. No, but everyone survives. Everyone survives. And it's a miracle that everyone on board survived. And we can see that a lot changed through the course of that trip as they went along. Because Paul, in the beginning, he's a prisoner, and he says, I don't think we should go. He gives them the reasons. No one listens. No one listens. And why would they? He's a prisoner. There's no reason for them to listen to him. He's not respected by them. He's not known by them. he's just some prisoner, right? They don't know him. It makes sense they would be unwilling to listen. But people are more willing to listen in the storm than they are in the calm. If you're a Christian, you've tried to talk to someone or witness to someone, they may not hear it, but in the storm, they'll call you and ask for prayer. They'll be open to what you have to say in the storm. And in the same sense, we are less likely to listen to God in the calm than in the storm. The times I am closest to God are where I am dependent upon God. I am hopeless and helpless, and I have nothing but him, and I must turn to him. That is when all ears are open. And I'm on my knees, and I am listening to God, because there is nothing left to cling to. There's nothing left to cling to. They threw out the money, first thing to go. Least important thing when it came down to it was the cargo. Least important thing. Then they threw out anything that let them dictate where they were going. Their plans, their hopes, their dreams. Then they threw their lifeboat out, the last-ditch escape plan. The only way they could step out of the will of God and step off that ship that God had told them to stay on till they were firmly and securely in God's hands alone. Everything was stripped away until they are in God's hands and God's hands alone. They can only trust in him. He is all they have. He's the only hope. The word of the Lord is the only hope. But to make it to this final step where they do survive, where they do make it through the storm, they had to heed the words of the Lord coming through Paul. And they didn't at first, but they do now. At the end, it seems almost like the centurion is taking orders from Paul. Paul says, hey, if they escape, then we won't survive. And the centurion says, cut away the lifeboat. Like Paul gave the order. The prisoner that would not be listened to is now giving the orders. He's now giving the orders. Now listen, this is a very dark time. Think about, as much as it's a dark time for everyone, Paul, if they get there, if they survive, you always think like, if we make it through, on the other side, this is what will happen. Paul, the thing that's awaiting him on the other side might just be prison, might be death. Right? He's in a storm, and a storm awaits him. Right? No matter how dark it is for everyone else on the ship, it's darker for Paul. And he has every right to be angry, frustrated, bitter, because he is in this storm because of someone else's decision. And that sometimes it's a lot easier to be angry and frustrated and bitter when we have someone to blame. Right? Sometimes we look around for someone to blame. Sometimes we can cast blame that really belongs to us on someone else because it's easier. It's easier if we can be angry and frustrated. And it can be a very frustrating thing to suffer consequences of someone else's actions. It's one thing to suffer the consequences of your own actions, but when you have to suffer the consequences of someone else's actions that they did after you told them not to, it'd be very difficult to not hold that against them. Am I right? It'd be very difficult not to hold it against them. And Paul is being treated unfairly, but he's not angry or vindictive. In fact, where do they get hope from? From Paul. Paul, in the middle of the storm, the man who wouldn't be listened to, the man who we could say, if it's anyone, if one person, we could say that person is not at fault here, it'd be him. And he's not angry or vindictive. In fact, he's the one to bring them hope. And they listen to him. And he's giving out orders. So we see Paul, from the beginning to the end, his status among the men changes. His status changes. His standing changes over the length of the trip because of his behavior. The centurion goes from not listening to him at all to cutting away their last hope for survival on Paul's word. Their last hope on Paul's word. Because of the way Paul acts in the midst of the storm. In the midst of a problem caused by someone else, because of someone else's poor judgment, Paul stands strong and gives them hope, and it changes their opinion of him to where they will finally listen to him. And it makes me wonder, who is watching me in the midst of a storm? Because there are people who will not listen in the calm. We all know the people who will not listen in the calm. But what are we doing when we're in a storm? How do we act in a storm? And who is watching us in the midst of a struggle? How do we react? Paul is able to give others hope because he has hope when no one else does. He's not just saying like, hey guys, keep your chin up. He has hope, and he is sharing that hope. He's in the storm, and he's not concerned with himself. He's concerned with everyone else, and he gives hope. He has hope to give when no one else does. Do you have hope when no one else does? Or are you just as hopeless? Are you just as hopeless? I don't want to bring this up, but in COVID, we were just as hopeless and helpless. Not everybody, but man, we were just as ridiculous. Just as sad, just as hopeless. Just as hopeless. But listen, we know the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. We know the one who takes our sorrow and shame and trades the joy of the Lord. Those aren't just words. When it says his spirit brings peace, if we say, that, oh man, you need to know God, his spirit brings peace. He takes your sorrow and shame and replaces it with joy. The first thing they're going to think or ask is, where is your joy? Where is your peace? I don't see you carrying joy. I don't see you carrying peace. And maybe we can, but then when the storms hit, we're just as paranoid or freaked out as everyone else. We can't say, man, when we die, we go to heaven, and I can't wait to be with the Lord whom I love and worship him and be scared to die. That doesn't make any sense. We don't have to be foolish, but we should carry joy and peace with us. We should carry joy and peace and hope with us. What are we showing? Are we showing peace in the midst of the storm? Are we showing joy in the trial? Because listen, 276 people are saved because they pin their hopes to the God of Paul. Not their God, the God of Paul. They pin their hopes to the God of Paul, and all 276 people are saved. How many people are in your ship? How many people are around you in the storm who are watching, who maybe didn't listen, who maybe don't respect you, who maybe don't look to you, but they are on your ship, and you want them to be saved? What does your behavior look like? Are you carrying hope? Are you carrying joy? Are you carrying peace? Do you look different from everyone else in the storm? Because listen, their lives depend on it. Their lives depend on it. And if you want everyone in that ship to be saved, that you need to be carrying the authority of the living God, the peace of the Spirit, the power of the Spirit, the hope of the Spirit. We have no need to fear the storms in our life. We have no need to fear the storms in our life. If you're in a storm right now, you will make it through to the other side. Maybe God will have stripped you of some things, but you will be grateful for it at the end when you see the sun shine again. Because in the storm, God works miracles. It is in the storm that God works miracles. And in this storm, maybe the storm of your life, maybe not only you will be delivered from this storm, but 276 others will be delivered from the storm. But what are you doing in the storm? How are you acting? Where does your hope lie? Do you run to him first? Because let me tell you, he's there and he's waiting and he will bring you through. Lord, I just thank you and I praise you that you are there for us in our storms, even the storms that we have caused, even the storms that are the consequences of our own actions. You are still there in the storm. I just pray that we'd be a people who listen to you before the storm. No one likes consequences, especially when it's avoidable, Lord. But I just pray that you would give us the joy of the Lord, that we could walk with your hope and your peace, that we would listen to your Spirit, Lord, that your Holy Spirit would just be the ultimate authority in our lives, that your voice would be the ultimate authority in our lives, Lord, that we would know your peace. If we have no hope, we can give no hope. If we have no peace, we can give no peace. I pray that we would truly be lights to the world, as we've been called to be in the midst of the darkness, in the midst of the storm. I just pray that you would help us to be strong. And I pray that we wouldn't just like feel like this burden of like, now I've got to pretend to be hopeful and pretend to be joyful and put on this fake face. That's not what we want. And that's that people know when we're being fake. I want it to be real and authentic. That you would give us real joy and real hope and real peace because we know where it comes from. It comes from you. May we seek it in your word. May we seek it in our prayer time. May we seek you in our prayer time and in the word. That all that we know, all whom we know might be saved. And for those of us in the storm right now, Lord, we just pray that you would give them hope and peace and joy, knowing that they will reach the other side and that they might come out with some survivors they've been praying for their whole life. We thank you that you are the God of the storm. You're the God of peace. You're the God of the valley and God of the mountain. And you are Lord of all. We just declare that today, Lord. You have all authority. The earth is your footstool, Lord. And you have all power, Lord, and we give you all honor and glory for that, Lord. May you work in our lives and work powerfully that others might see us shine. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.